It is that time of the week again when we review all of the ways in which the media covers themselves in glory. Joining us now, as always, to discuss is Katie Halper. She is co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast and host of the Katie Halper Show. Great to see you, Katie.
Good to see you, Katie.
You too.
We have a doozy for this week. You found this one. Let's put this up there on the screen. The New York Times' technology columnist, Kevin Roose, is saying that we need a quote-unquote reality czar to be appointed by the government in order to determine what is true and what is not online. I mean, I just cannot see any way in which that doesn't turn out it's going to be the greatest thing that could ever happen to a free and open society, right, Katie?
Yeah, it's the best. I mean, all signs point to truth, as this graphic that appoints the article.
Yeah, whatever the hell this is.
Truth. I mean, I guess that's better than Putin. I guess now that Trump is not in office, all signs don't point to Putin. They all point to truth, or they will once we have an information reality czar. But yeah, this is pretty. I mean, to be fair, the op-ed writer does say it sounds dystopic or sounds dystopian, and that's probably one of the best parts of the whole op-ed. And also, I do think that I do like that he acknowledges and he talks to quote-unquote experts who acknowledge that material conditions do contribute to people's kind of gullibility and receptiveness to conspiracy theories. But I think that this happens a lot with the censorship issue that we talk about on this show a lot. And it's not just censorship, but something else that happens that's really dangerous and misleading is the way that things that are not labeled as misinformation or disinformation are then given this imprimatur of official, sanctioned, fact-checked news. And that's just not the case often. And so what it does is it suggests that people can have their guard down. And we've seen, the New York Times, Biden, Hillary Clinton, The Guardian, all these, established, reputable sources engage in trafficking conspiracy theories, right? Now, they're not about COVID necessarily or the election results. They are about Russia. And it's nice to see that those still haven't gone away despite Trump not being in power. And also, with this in combination with Newsweek basically lying about Biden in a headline, saying that his critics lied about him before having to correct their article, which I guess, hallelujah, the fact that they actually corrected and acknowledged that they had been either mistaken or dishonest in their presentation of the news. But how do people think this is going to work out? And then another thing, you got Glenn Kessler, whose entire career is basically undermining the actual articles in the Washington Post through his fact-checking in order to undermine Bernie Sanders. I mean, that's pathological. That deserves we should do a deep dive into that. But you put all of those things together, the dishonesty of politicians, the way that Biden in particular is totally enabled and coddled by the media, the way his lies are sanitized, not called out, the way his critics are called liars when they're not. Combine that, it's a pretty dangerous combination.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally Orwellian. They're literally calling for a ministry of truth, right? I mean, it's the realities are. And I'm glad you said, because all of the op-ed wasn't terrible. There were parts of it, you talked to experts, and you're right, they said, hey, maybe the real answer here is to deal with people's material conditions so they feel like they have trust in the institutions around them and they have a stake in society. That's the real direction to go in. But I think it speaks to a kind of impressive short-sightedness that you would even suggest such an idea. There seems to be an inability among some liberals to see 5 feet in front of their face of Donald Trump could get elected again. And then he's the one who will be in charge of the reality czar. You still going to feel super comfy with this idea if that were to happen? Or Tom Cotton or, my God, Marjorie Taylor Greene could end up with the GOP nomination and you never know what could happen. You really feel comfortable giving them this kind of power and don't see how it could go wrong?
Yeah, I think that's true. They're myopic and they're arrogant, right? They couldn't imagine Trump winning either time. Turned out he didn't win the second time. But I think what you're saying is true. And also, now that you mention it, of course, part of the reason, right, is that people have lost trust in institutions, ranging from the media to politicians. But wow, imagine if you're skeptical of the media and politicians and their corruption, what's going to be more convincing of their honesty than a reality czar? Like, I'm sure that's really comforting for people.
That's going to fix the problem.
Yeah, like that's great optics. Oh, great. We have a reality czar in the Biden administration. So I just think that's really disturbing. And, watching the media cover for this guy over the years, it's very depressing. And there's going to be there's like no vigilance. There's no opposition. And just watching, again, Trump is not Biden, but watching the double standards, to some extent, they're appropriate, right? When they're responding to very different behavior and policies. But in other ways, it's just totally, we'll give one of them a pass and we'll focus on the wrong things, in my opinion, that were bad about Trump, when there were so many bad things to talk about.
Yeah. But so many bad things to talk about.
Yeah, right? And then the final thought I had on this was, now, of course, I lost it, but it was such a good point. What was it? Trump, Biden. Oh, you know what? Here's another thing. If people want to convince people that conspiracy theories about the government and the media aren't true, how about the government not advocate for things like sending kids back to school and basing that on a CDC study that said it would be safe if everything else was shut down too? So that's another thing. That doesn't give me trust in the administration or in the media.
How about if you promise $2,000 checks, you actually send out $2,000 checks? That would start to rebuild some trust as well.
Or admitting that you lie about masks and then being like, well, we did it for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's so myopic. It's so self-congratulating and arrogant. And again, I've said this for, ever since Trump was in office, that all the Dems would have to do once they were in power again would say, but Trump, right? Like, they could have one fewer kid in a cage and they would pat themselves on the back for that.
Yep, so true.
Yeah.
Katie, thank you for breaking it down. Great to see you.
Thanks, Katie.
Well, more Rising for you after this.